to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody. Tom Dutta here, like butter. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. I'm very excited today. We have a great guest. He's in the green room. And before I bring him on, I want to tell you a couple things. First, I want to just do a quick acknowledgement that our show is being brought to you by Create Publishing. We bring stories to life at Create Publishing. And now we're live streaming, everybody. What is live streaming? Well, live streaming, it's the next generation of podcasting. Today we're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you're on any of those feeds, you can use the chat box to talk to us. You can actually put questions. We'll put them on the screen. Me and my guest will be able to have a conversation around that. We will bring the guest on in a moment. Let me tell you a little bit about his background. If you're listening to the podcast in the future when we release this, you won't see what's on the screen, but for those on the video, there it is. We have today Lee Phillips. He's an attorney, counselor of the United States Supreme Court. He's in Utah, by the way. I'm here in Vancouver, British Columbia, truly international. He has 3 university degrees, licenses in real estate, mortgage brokering, securities, life insurance, as well as being a registered investment advisor. Now, I was just chatting with Lee offline, everybody, and my wife works in the banking industry as an estate planner. I just lost my father. She lost her 2 parents. The topics today are very relevant for us, and I'm sure for the audience. Lee's also the founder of LegaLees Corporation, kind of cool name, company specializing in solving things like asset protection, tax problems for high net worth individuals. He graduated, he practiced law as a patent attorney. Then he spent 5 years in the dual position of assistant general counsel and associate director of research at the nation's, and that's the United States, largest private university. He's the author of 19 books. My goodness, I was getting excited, Lee, that I have done 2 books. 19, I got to catch up. He serves on editorial boards of several professional publications. And what I thought was really interesting, everyone, the value today, he is very engaging. He's a dynamic speaker, 3,000 event presentations throughout U.S., Canada, Pacific Rim, and he's helped millions of people understand the law and how to use that to make money and protect their assets. Wow, it's humbling. Let me bring on our guest, Mr. Lee Phillips. Hey, Lee, welcome to the show.
That almost sounded pretty good, Tom, I guess.
Yeah, you ever get that imposter syndrome? It's like, who are you talking about?
Something like that. And we need to just forget all that garbage and go on.
Okay, I like that. I like you already because I don't have a lot of garbage to talk about myself. Hey, Lee, where are you at right now? I mentioned Utah, but you're somewhere in that beautiful state.
I'm actually in the Provo-Orem area.
Yeah.
BYU, UVU, Novell, WordPerfect, all of those companies.
A beautiful place. I've been out there, and I love particularly the scenery. Actually, when we were younger, when my parents were together, we took a trip down there. Remember a camper truck, and we went to that big cathedral where they have the organ and whatnot. And
okay, the Tabernacle Choir place.
Oh my goodness,
Lee, Tabernacle in Salt Lake.
Do you play any instruments? Because I play guitar, but that blew me away.
I can play a radio, and that's about it.
Okay, maybe get you a kazoo or something. Tell me, let's go back. This is about storytelling, the narrative, Lee. And I want to go back to the beginning as early as you want. A lot of times people are interested in your childhood and sort of how you navigated into school. Just start us there. Tell us some things.
Well, I was always into the education. My wife and I got married when we were 19.
Wow.
And we both became lawyers. Neither one of us ever wanted to do anything with the law when we were 19. But life, like you said, doesn't always turn out the way you thought it might be.
Yeah.
So we had 3 children right off the bat. And at age 27, I've got a bachelor's in geology and physics, a master's in nuclear chemistry, and then the law degree, and start practicing as a patent attorney for a couple of months. And then everything came to a dead stop. I was diagnosed with advanced terminal cancer. In fact, I was given 2 to 3 weeks to live.
Oh my goodness.
Finally discovered I had heart failure. And I became the national guinea pig. The treatment was at the University of Utah. It was directed by the University of Indiana. Average cancer patient, 2-3 treating doctors. I had 53 treating doctors.
Wow.
We received bills from over 250 doctors. And I know that over 1,000 doctors participated in the project. I checked into intensive care at the University of Utah on January 23rd. I came out of intensive care on July 4th.
Oh my goodness.
So I was in the ICU unit for a long time, and I didn't work for 3 years. After you've been that sick for that long, you are now unemployable.
Yeah.
And so I had to hang out my own shingle and start to practice law. And the easiest thing to do is wills and trust, because Uncle Harry needs one and Aunt Gertie needs one, and you can do it. But I became very frustrated because I didn't learn how to do it in law school. Lawyers don't learn anything in law school.
I think I'm going to produce this as a great commercial for law school. Here's Lee. Don't learn anything, but go to law school.
It's a bunch of garbage, guys. When you graduate, you go to the law firm, and then you do what the senior guys tell you to do. Well, I didn't have any senior guys.
Wow.
And it was really hard to figure it out. And being a scientist, basically, I wanted to know why you did this.
Yep.
And the lawyers can't tell you why they do something. They just do it because that's the way it's been done.
Interesting. I got to pause you there for a minute, everybody. Everybody, we have Lee Phillips on the line here, and Lee is giving us some wisdom here. I want to just go back, Lee, and just jump in. I just show you that you've seen on the other camera. I've been writing some notes here, and when I do the interview, you say something, my brain gets triggered to go on a journey, and it evokes thoughts. Man, my daughter, by the way, is in 24 in engineering university back east, the other side of Canada. Yeah, environmental engineering. I mean, this girl is smart. She cares about the planet. At least she started working at McDonald's.
Must be from her mother, huh, Tom?
What's that?
The smart must be from her mother?
It's from her mom. It's from her mom, totally. Like I said, most of the garbage is in me.
I'm a joker, by the way, Tom.
I like that. I have that sense of humor, so watch out yourself. Yeah, but what I was trying to get at is at age 16, she worked for McDonald's, and within a week they gave her the McDonald's handbook, and she said, I don't like the company because of the waste and the environment, the way they weren't looking after it. Yeah. What I'm getting at in my long little side story is I'm looking at geology and all these the degrees you did. I'm going like, man, there's so many people who come out of school and their influence, they go into these things and they end up somewhere totally where they didn't start. So that's the first thing. When I give it back to you, I just wanted to ask you to just tell us, how did you make, like, why there did you start? And then I'm really sorry about the situation you went through. Everybody, that's a teaching moment. If you listen to Lee, this man, as he's talking, he's using humor, which helps us deal with a very deep subject, but critical cancer, 2 weeks. Tell us now, I want to give it back to you. Take us back in that moment. What did you feel and how did you deal with your mental health throughout this and even after recovery?
Well, I didn't have too much of a problem with my mental health because basically I was the experimental case. I was maybe one of the first, or at least one of the first, if not the first, to have multiple chemotherapies given all at the same time. If you're in a critical condition now, they'll give you what's called a bone marrow kill. They give you basically the same 6 chemotherapy agents that I got, only they give them to you in a big enough dose that it kills your bone marrow and everything.
Oh my goodness.
They had no clue what they were doing with me. I didn't have any life expectancy anyway, so I was literally the guinea pig.
Yep.
And they gave me these 6 chemotherapy agents. The first round, they gave them to me at 10 times the dose they would give them to you today. And that just put me into a coma for 6 weeks.
Goodness gracious.
So, I didn't have a lot of problem. The problem is with the spouse.
Yeah.
Christy's got 3 little kids. They're continuing to ask her, well, he's dying. He's going to die.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to take care of the kids? How are you going to do this? I'd gone to school. She'd stayed home, been the mom, and she was plenty bright, obviously, but didn't go to school. And she didn't have the education. She couldn't have gotten a job that would have paid enough
Yeah.
to have supported her and the three kids.
Yep.
And frankly, if my mom and dad and her mom and dad hadn't stepped in, they gave us a little bit of money, we would have been homeless on the street.
Well, it's a good time for me to jump in and trade stories again. By the way, I had a picture when I did the show art for the show. I'll just put that up to block us for a minute. There's a lady in the bottom bar. There is that who you're talking about?
Let's see. I didn't see the.
I'll put a different one up.
That's my wife, Christy. She died of a disease called ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. You call it motor neuron disease around the world.
When did she pass?
She died almost 4 years ago.
Yeah.
We'd been married 46 years, so we did pretty good.
I'm sorry for your loss.
She took care of me for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I had to take care of her for 5 years, so she got even with me.
I love it. You went up there. So let's jumping in. Everybody, teaching moments here. So just catching up on the journey of the story. Lee, through cancer. Wow. I mean, even I have a lot of experience talking to people about cancer, and they were when somebody was telling me with their child that they really, some of the treatments are so out of date, the research hasn't been done. They know when they're doing things sometimes that it's not even going to help. And it's remarkable what you went through. I think you're an amazing guy because there's something about you, resilience. I study brain science, looking at a PhD in neuroscience, and the mental health part is really tough, especially things like depression and whatnot. So way to go getting through that. I want to just now give you the little story that came to mind. Was in 2018, Lee, I fell in a bathtub and actually was concussed. I cracked the tub, sustained a serious brain injury. And that all went into things like suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety. And today, I'm 5 years later, I have a team of docs still, a bit of double vision, and can't deal with light, so I wear tinted glasses now. But the thing about that is what you said was incredibly emotional for me because, Lee, I after being a CEO most of my life, I created my own business. I have an education company. And I didn't think of, I'm embarrassed to say, but I didn't think of the insurance side. So I was making six figures, and when I got concussed, life stopped. I probably shouldn't be here. My income went to zero. It's just my wife surviving, and I really understand what you're saying. And that was the scariest part, but the impact it had on my wife, see, she's watching me slip into mental illness and a shell of a man. They put me in therapy. It was called IPT, which is relationship therapy. I'll finish with this because everybody, Lee taught us a really important thing. When you're going through something difficult, the spouse goes through as much. Well, Lee, what was happening is our marriage was rocky. And in my head, I'm fighting mental illness. And in her head, she's fighting seeing me as a shell of a guy. And so we didn't understand each other. So IPT, which is interpersonal therapy, was an amazing program for me, which taught me how to actually understand more about the emotions of my partner. So I want to honor you for your story, especially with your wife's ALS and that. Let's get back into now. So here you are, now you're the lawyer, and you've talked about, some of the situations you went through with the financial risks and all that. Teach us something now. So if you're talking to people, give us some of your wisdom on estate planning or anything at all. I mean, this is an open season for what wisdom can you share with us?
This is going to be a really short show, Tom, if I'm sharing my wisdom.
I know they told me when I booked you, they told me we only need 10 minutes. And I said, I don't think so. Hey, look, Lee, we're already at what, 9? Well, yeah, we're past that. So keep going.
That's it. Okay, we're going good.
We're on a roll.
I do want to go back for just 2 seconds on what these illnesses, yours, mine, due to the, I'm going to call them the surviving spouse.
Yeah.
Christy got to the point where she couldn't even drive herself. She was so upset. She'd drive and she didn't know that she'd gotten from point A to point B. if a diagnosis of cancer carries a huge divorce rate, the spouse can't deal with it. So you need to be aware that, yes, we have a sick spouse, Tom or Lee, but we also have a spouse that's dealing with life that is totally different now.
Yeah.
And it's very stressful, upsetting to that spouse. So you need to be cognizant of what that spouse is going through in addition to what the sick spouse is going through. And in a way, the sick spouse has it easy. It's the spouse that has to deal with the everyday stuff that's still coming at them while they're trying to take care of you when you're sick. So it's
That's incredible, especially if you haven't done that. I was something came to mind, Lee, when you said that. I was having coffee a couple days ago with a fellow named John McComb. He's an American, but he came up here and he was a broadcaster for 45 years. And his son has ALS, so all these little threads right in our stories. And his daughter-in-law for 10 years has been caring for him, and then he is dealing with some things himself, and his wife's just had a hip replacement. All this stuff going on, and he's funny. He's like you. He's got a dark sense of humor a bit, and he says, "I'm not a very good caretaker." He said, "My goodness," he said, "now I really appreciate what these people go through when they're having to look after." The sick. So that's very true.
Just wanted to kind of drive that home, that you need to be concerned with the sick spouse and the well spouse. They've got it tough too.
Yeah.
But at any rate, as far as estate planning, when I got through being sick, the legal system took us to the cleaners while I was sick.
In what way?
Well, the IRS came in and said that we owed money 2 years before I'd started a little business, little chemistry business. And they said we owed payroll taxes and stuff 2 years before we ever started the business. And they said we owed more tax than our entire payroll.
Wow.
And we missed one of the 10-day notices. I was in the hospital. Christy was living with her mom and dad 50 miles away from home. And she missed one of the 10-day notices that the IRS was sending out to us. And they came in, they seized our bank account at the business. They seized our personal bank account. They seized our home. They took everything. 2 years after, they finally said, "Yeah, I guess we made a mistake." And they gave us all of our money back plus interest. But I had lost my business because we couldn't pay salaries anymore. I defaulted on a big government contract, so I was getting sued for that. And asset protection became a passion of mine.
Yeah.
I started with the estate planning because that's the easiest stuff to do. And then I went into the asset protection. How do I make it so that if I get sick or somebody dies or you get sued, that we don't lose everything?
Lee, let's just get you to expand on. I know our audience are fairly sophisticated, but just define estate, and when you say asset protection, what might be in that bucket?
Well, the estate planning is the stuff that you think of as the wills and trusts and powers of attorney. In the States, we call them a durable power of attorney. In Canada, you call it an enduring power of attorney. But these types of legal documents that help when somebody becomes incompetent or when they actually die. And if you've done, I'm going to say homework in advance, it becomes a lot easier to go through these things. I got sued because I signed a contract, signed a piece of paper, and I didn't know I'd even signed the piece of paper. It was actually the federal government again. But I didn't know I'd signed the piece of paper. We went back in the lawsuit and proved that on the day I had signed the piece of paper, I'd had 13 types of drugs, including 120 milligrams of morphine. And to put that in perspective for you, the chemical handbook says that 60 milligrams of morphine in a 24-hour period for an adult is fatal.
Oh my goodness.
So I wasn't.
Oh, okay. That obviously begs the question: who the heck decided to give you that if they knew that fact? Or there must have been a reason for it. That's crazy.
Well, no, this is a story we don't want to go into. It was my disability papers, and disability takes 6 months to kick in, and by that time I had gone on and I had applied for another government program to help us. We didn't have any money.
Yes.
And when I applied for the second government program, there was the box of you applied for any other government assistance. And I checked the box no. And they came back and said, you committed fraud on the government because you're trying to double dip.
Wow. This is, by the way, this is not something new, Lee. I know you know this, but everybody, it's a teaching moment again for Lee. How many of us sign stuff, Lee? And I do it all the time. We don't read the fine print. We just trust. And that's something my situation with my concussion and all, I've done those things too. And I'm finding out later, what did I do? What did I put myself in? By the way, the extra morphine, it certainly wasn't there for hair growth, was it?
It didn't work.
It didn't work. By the way, there's an article.
Hey, I've got more. You can't point fingers at me. I got more than you do, Tom.
Yeah, but you don't know this because when I got concussed, I couldn't see right, so I was trying to self-cut my hair during COVID, and I went, screw it. Yeah, and I just took it all off, and I said, I'm going to keep it. The good news is, and you and I are going to be happy, apparently there's a breakthrough in neuroscience that from some DNA or something, they've been able to grow hair follicles on bald mice. So I'll keep you in mind for that one. Let's go back to what you said. So now a lot of people, especially when they're getting older, their faculties are not able to make the right decisions. Again, talk more about asset protection, the estate side, the things you have.
I'm going to kind of break them into two pieces, and actually,
okay,
in a sense, they are two pieces. You go to an attorney to get the estate stuff, and you go to the business guy and you get your business stuff, and they don't mix the two together.
Yep.
For example, large percentage, like 90% of small businesses fail after the founder dies. And part of the problem is they haven't structured it so that the small business can survive legally the owner's death. Who takes over? Can we sell it? It gets caught in probate. Canada doesn't worry a ton about probate, but in the U.S., it's a big deal.
Yep.
We get taken advantage of by the lawyers. And
define probate. Lee, sorry to jump on you.
Probate is the process of moving assets for a dead guy. The problem is, you go to buy your house, the guy's dead. He's got to sign the deed to transfer to you. Well, he's dead. He can't sign deed. So we have to go to court and have the court say, okay, Lee can't sign the deed anymore. He's dead. We're going to let his wife sign the deed. And then she can sign the deed. But this process of getting permission for somebody to act on behalf of the dead guy, which is called probate, is long. It takes a while. And in that amount of time, the business, well, I didn't do it, but I had a neighbor. He was a pediatrician, and he died very unexpectedly. By the time they got everything through probate and got it to where they could sell his practice, all the patients had gone bye-bye. The practice wasn't worth anything.
Yep.
So
crazy. I'm relating to that too on a different trend. Two things, and maybe you have something to say back about it. One is I have a client that I do a lot of work with, 12 companies, a group of conglomerate of construction companies, and we talk about that all the time. There's no technically heir apparent. He wants his son eventually to be. Son's quite young, and I've done a lot of work with owner operators, and it's psychological. They build this business on the side of their desk, kind of like what I did. It's your baby, and there's a psychological barrier they don't want to let go, and the processes aren't in place. So I've heard somebody said to me long ago, and when I built my business, Lee, build it as if it's for sale. have the processes document, the wisdom out of the owner's head, bring in your management services team eventually, so that, as you said, if you die, the business lives on. So I think that story you just told is probably would you say it's a lot of small, medium-sized business. They just don't have that place, and then something happens, and there's a mess. And then going back to the father, my dad, when he passed, it was the same thing. The probate took so long, and there was expenses for the funeral and all that, and it had to come out of the pockets of my brothers and I, and there was a lot of financial stress. So I like what you're saying. Keep going and keep teaching us.
Well, so you have to set up the estate planning, which is going to be a will. In the States, it's going to be a trust. You can have a trust in Canada too.
Yep.
But it's not as necessary, I'm going to say. I'm going to say in the States, it's necessary.
Are you saying it's not necessary to have a will or to have a trust?
Everybody has a will.
Okay.
You have a trust in many situations also. And the trust avoids the probate. It's a legal trick. What we do is we set up this trust, and I'm going to call it a business, and every attorney out there just rolled their eyes and said he's an idiot. Which is true. But think of it as a little business. We set up the little business, we set up the trust, and then we move these assets into the trust that require your signature. The bank account, the brokerage account, the piece of real property, the little business. I got to sign if I'm going to sell a little business. So we make the trust owner of all of these assets. Now, while you're alive, you're the trustee, you do it all, you're the beneficiary, you put your checking account into the trust, and the checks bounce just as high as they ever did.
Yeah.
So nothing changed really, but it's a legal trick because when you die, the owner of the assets didn't die. The manager of the assets, the trustee, died.
I see.
And the trust document says when you're dead, number one takes over. If number one can't take over, number two takes over. Number three, usually those are the kids, or you can have a bank, you can have anybody. But we've now gone out and around this probate problem, and we have all of the assets ready to go. Additionally, the trust should be written so that it allows the family to say that you're incompetent and you can't manage these assets anymore. And the fact is, you've got a lot better chance of being incompetent next week than you do being dead.
That's right.
So we've got to take care of these assets, not only after you die, but when you possibly become incompetent. And we don't want to go to court and have you declared incompetent. That takes a long time. It's expensive. Yep. We want to be able, usually the way I set it up is the signature of a doctor and the spouse and each one of the kids. If those guys all sign a piece of paper that says Tom doesn't know what he's doing, then the successor, the new guy, can take over management of these assets.
Interesting.
And so we've gone out and around the big problems when you become incompetent.
Yep.
And
let me ask you a question of that, Lee. Everybody, we're here with Lee Phillips, the idiot lawyer with garbage in his head who went to school, didn't learn anything, and he's teaching us a lot today. So thanks for.
So bad.
I'm just capturing what Lee just told me. Everybody, we're having fun. I want to ask you about divorce, or two things. Divorce happens. So I 28 years married now to my beautiful Italian Anna, but I went through a first marriage 7 years. When I married her, 2 kids came with it. Now I had my daughter. We still have a will that's based on prior. So should the will be rewritten if there's a change in marital status? And number 2, can those instructions for incompetence, Lee, be put in place before that happens? So if I go talk to somebody or you and set up my will and my trust, can that all be done? Like if Tom gets can that be done then?
Absolutely. You do it now. You can't do it after you're incompetent, obviously.
Correct.
Because you're not competent to do it.
Yeah.
So you do it now. We have the trust and it has assets. And we also have the power of attorney, the durable power of attorney or the enduring power of attorney. It endures your incompetency.
Right.
A general power of attorney kicks out when the guy becomes incompetent. We don't want that. We want one that kicks in when the guy becomes incompetent. So you've got the trustee managing these assets, and you've got the agent, they call them, under the power of attorney managing everything else. The cell phone isn't in the trust. You own it. But who controls the cell phone when you're incompetent? Who can deal with the cell phone company? Who can deal with the power company and the water company and do all of these things that really aren't under the trust because they're not assets, they're stuff, they're problems.
Yeah.
So the durable power of attorney allows the agent, usually the same guy as the trustee, but they allow them to take care of all the rest of this stuff. So you need those two pieces to go together, and then they've got to be interfaced with your business, because your business is probably your most valuable asset, frankly.
Correct.
So we have to treat it as an asset that's going to be subject to probate or problems when you become incompetent or when you die. So we've got to think, how do we do the business? And the business attorney sets it up, and they think, okay, we got to protect you from all of the problems that arise in the business. That's the corporate shield. But they never think, how do we protect the business if the owner becomes incompetent? And the flip side of the coin is, how do we protect the business if the owner gets sued or has a problem? In the States, well over half of all bankruptcies are not a result of a lawsuit in a business. They're a result of somebody in the family getting sick.
Wow.
And when somebody in the family gets sick, the question is, are you going to lose your real estate investments? Or are you going to lose your little business? And the answer for most people is yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting excited and emotional all together because the bankruptcy thing's very real. I was I was making six figures running my business, had the injury. I spent 3 years, Lee. It's I actually learned a lot there, a lot of wisdom, if you want to call it. I was night stalking at Costco for 2 years just to use my body, and a year waiting tables serving beer and pizza. Hey, it would have been a great night out for you and I, I'm sure. But during that time, I'm looking at going from a six-figure income to minimum wage. I remember taking my tips at the restaurant and trying to send it to my daughter to help her with university. I got to be honest with you, I'm a little emotional now because I feel I let her down with that. But here's the thing:
the accident totally changed your life, Tom.
It did, Lee, and not only dealing with the guilt of it, but the scary part is not knowing what the future is. The concept of bankruptcy went through my mind. I had to grind away and get myself back to health and start working, which I've been able to do. But there were moments there, and then I'm thinking about I don't know if you missed it or you just maybe it's a different concept we're talking about. But look at the historical events in the world, like COVID, like the subprime mortgage situation, the financial collapse, all the bankruptcies that happen, even through those, I guess they call them external events, all that stuff. And if you didn't have your affairs or somebody, in there to help you set all these planning structures up, I can just imagine, not being able to deal with it.
I had a guy come to me in the mid 80s. And he said, Lee, I want to structure a business. It was a direct marketing business.
Yep.
And I want to structure it. And I want to structure it so if anything happens to the business, my wife and my kids, they're taken care of. And so we structured it. And what I did is I set it up so he had his direct marketing business, and his wife had an independent business. She had nothing to do with his business. He had nothing to do with her business.
Yep.
And I structured it so that we legally had reason, took all of the profits out of his business every year and moved them to his wife's business.
Clever.
Well, he got it from the mid 80s to 1991. He got it up to $150 million a year.
Wow.
That ain't bad.
No. Give me one of those.
let's see, what's the date? I want to say January 17th. No, it's August. The Gulf War hit.
Yep.
And I was actually in Boston, driving from Boston to Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
And I was doing work for this guy, actually. And I remember listening to the war.
Wow.
And the United States would declared war.
That's right.
In my lifetime, would never declared war.
Uh-huh.
In anybody's lifetime, basically, would never declared war.
That's right.
And the nation was afraid and would never seen a war on TV. CNN was covering it wall to wall.
Yeah. Hey, listen, up here in Canada, watching it every day. I mean, it's what do they call it? It's omnipresent now.
And this guy's business went from 600,000 miles an hour to zero in 48 hours.
Wow.
The buying habits of the nation changed.
That's right.
But in direct marketing, you got to put a lot of money up front to make it work.
That's right.
And nobody bought it. Nobody bought anything. Everybody changed.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything wrong. Zero. He didn't make a mistake. Nothing.
Yeah.
And he had to declare bankruptcy. And he owed the post office $2 million. He took down half a dozen printers in the city. I mean, it was a mess. There were so many lawsuits that the attorney general in the state took it over and prosecuted him. And actually, my wife, Christy, after our little kids went to school, she went back to school and she got a double degree in English and history. And I said, Christy, you ain't going to make a lot of money with those. Go to law school and you can work with me. And she got into one of the top 25 law schools in the United States, which is an accomplishment in and of itself.
What's the top? What's that one called that she went to?
Brigham Young University.
Nice.
It's one of the top ones.
Everybody, there's a beautiful picture. His late wife, Christy. Yeah, awesome. I think she's the smarter one there, right?
Well, obviously. No, I'm the smartest one. I married her.
Yeah. I've heard that many times. Oh my goodness, what did I just say? I want to ask you about. There's a thing in Canada, they call it business continuity. There is, so tell me about that. So is there, about the insurance side, and also one more thing, a lot of the clients that I know, in my business is like that too. There's trapped, I don't know what you call it, trapped value in the business. All of a sudden the owner dies and all that value sitting there. And I heard there's insurance structures you can set up with insurance policies and all this stuff. I mean, is there anything that you want to tell us more about asset protection or, protecting from those?
I'm getting there. Let me finish the story.
Okay.
So Christy's actually in the court when this case comes.
Yeah.
And she's clerking for the judge at that time, which is a big deal if you're a new lawyer. And the first thing that happens is the wife's attorney. I mean, the attorney general is named the wife, the dog, the cat, the kids, the car, the neighbor, everybody. And the first thing that happens in court is the wife's attorney stands up and says, Your Honor, there is no allegation in this complaint that wife did anything wrong. And the judge looked at the AG and said, Well, boys. And there was about a 15-minute caucus. And the attorney general came back and said, No, Your Honor, we have no complaint against the wife.
Goodness gracious.
And the judge said, okay, case dismissed with prejudice against wife. Wife and attorney stand up and walk out. And Christy said there was an audible in the court. There goes the money.
Wow. Amazing.
And the last time I saw this guy was in his penthouse on Maui. And he never worked again. He was in his mid-50s. But we had taken the money out of his company and moved it over here to protect it. So you need to think now in your business, how do I protect my profit? How do I protect it so that if the business has a hiccup, goes down, we don't lose the business or don't lose the money.
Yep.
And so it's something you have to think about now. And this whole asset protection stuff is a now thought. It's not a thought later. If you can see the problem, you're too late, guys.
Yeah.
We have fraudulent conveyance statutes, fraudulent transfer statutes, laws, all of this stuff that says once the problem occurs, you're locked in, buddy.
Yep.
And so you've got to do all this way in advance.
I think I just come into mind education, Leah, and this is really important because my daughter, even we talk about this in school, the kids aren't taught even managing financials. I mean, I don't know in the US, but money's crazy up here. My daughter's in university and she's getting a credit card application, doesn't even have a job. And they're teaching kids, they're not teaching kids in school, how to manage and how to, look ahead with estates and planning. I think I just was going to say, from what you were saying about planning, imagine when you have a child, like my daughter's going through this, she's finishing a degree, and they're in academia, right? They're in this academia bubble, and the universities make fees to keep themselves running. And I'm not saying I don't value education, but now it's like, oh, I want to do another degree, and then, dopamine's running, and I'm addicted to my education, a little afraid of going out in the real world. I'll do another degree. I said to my daughter, and I said this to another young person I was mentoring, why don't you look at the time, the value of the lost opportunity, or whatever you call it, time value of money, just by not going into the workplace for another 5 years, and what age you're going to be when you come out, when you have to start earning your income. Think about that. Think about if you're going to buy a home, have a family. The youth aren't even thinking about this, and all this stuff you're saying, it's like, it makes total sense. So, what can we do to educate people so they do these things before? What do you recommend?
Well, I don't know, but I've spent my life, the 19 books and all the stuff that I've done, I looked at it when I first started to practice law, and I said, the lawyers are basically setting up the little business guy for failure.
Interesting.
Because they're not saying you need to worry about what happens to your business if you get sick or if you die. And that's fine. The lawyer doesn't care what happens to the business. The lawyer's going to make a lot of money cleaning up the mess.
Yeah. And
so they just don't even think about it. They honestly don't know. So what I've done in my life is I have created educational materials to teach people how to use a corporation or an LLC or
awesome.
a will or a trust or whatever this is, so that they understand why I have a trust, what it does for me. I can even teach them how to set it up themselves. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee they can set it up themselves better than 50% of the lawyers in town.
Yep.
So the legal system isn't a big deal. Lawyers go to school for an extra 3 years to learn how to speak and write so people can understand them.
Yeah, actually, I heard that somewhere before. I don't know if it was a movie that, the writing these articles or whatever, the legal jargon is, you have to have another lawyer to interpret it. And
all of the professions have their jargon to protect them, to make them special. But if you break it down into plain English, it really isn't that big of a deal. It's not hard.
Lee, here's another question. Here's another question. If you start a business and before that you obviously have your home and all your personal assets, is there a quick and easy way, or should you get an advisor or somebody like you to decide? What do you put in the business name versus out of the business name?
Well, you only put business assets in the business name, and I'm going to say in the U.S. today, you need to have a limited liability company. If you have a corporation, you need to get rid of it. You need to change from a corporate legal structure to a limited liability structure, an LLC structure, because the LLC structure gives you twice as much asset protection as a corporation. The corporation only protects the owner from what happens in the company. The LLC has that exact same corporate shield, we call it, that protects the owner from what happens out in the company. But it also has another concept in asset protection called charging order protection.
Okay.
And that protects the assets of the company from what happens to the owners. If the owner gets divorced, if the owner hits a kid in the crosswalk on the way to church, that's not business. And the owner gets sued. Are we going to lose the business? If it's a corporation, yeah, I'm going to sue you. I get your stock. I now own your business, buddy.
Interesting.
If it's an LLC, I can't sue you and get your stock, your membership interest in the LLC. I have to get the judgment against you, and then I go back to court and get an order which charges the debt that you owe me against the company. But I can't come in and take over the company. I can't sell a company. I can't manage the company. I get nothing out of the company unless the company declares a profit. And then I get it. You don't get it. So, but I'm still running the company. How often do you think I'm going to be declaring a profit? So you get it, buddy.
That's right. That's right. Hey, everybody, we're here with Lee Phillips, and we're talking about estate planning and asset protection in the journey he's taken. I want to just jump in. So what you just said makes a lot of sense to me. In Canada, we have a limited corporate or limited LTD. That's what I've set up. I set it up 19 years ago. Actually, we actually set that up, Lee, because we were buying a property at a lake when my daughter was born, where we liked to go on holiday, and there was something called a builder's tax. They were building this hotel, and my lawyer said you should set up a limited company because you can get back the refund of that 5%. Anyway, I started this company 19 years ago. I was in direct selling too. I became a diamond distributor, and we started putting everything into the business, running it through that. Today, I have my publishing company, and I've got my media company. I've got my education company. It's all in there. What I worry about
companies, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's run through the LTD, but what I'm worried about is the other way. You talked about protecting the company. What I worry about is if somebody can't get stuff from the company, they're going to sue us personally. I guess, there's no way to protect against that. If they're going to do that, they do that, right?
Well, the corporate shield protects you from the lawsuit that stems from the activities of the company.
Okay.
And the corporate shield, I know you have corporations in Canada. They have the corporate shield.
Yeah.
The LTD, I am not familiar with in Canada. It's my understanding Canada does not have a limited liability company concept. LTDs are the old English limited liability company, but I don't know that they came to Canada. They didn't come to the U.S. until 1977 when Wyoming basically implemented them. And,
Interesting.
But they're old European concepts.
Yeah.
The LTDs in Europe, the GmbHs, Gesellschaft mit Beschränkter Haftung, whatever it is. My Deutscher hates to do it.
Say that again.
So,
you never told us you're part German. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, now you got me thinking. It was 1997 when I incorporated, and I believe my company name is
said incorporated. I'll buy that.
Okay, but my company name is TAD Holdings Ltd. Maybe I
believe it's still a corporate structure.
Okay, then I misspoke. I think you're right. I've got my articles somewhere.
You've got articles of incorporation.
That's
got
correct.
Bylaws.
Yeah, I have to do filings every year and that kind of thing.
That's called a corporation, basically.
Okay, so
I
we're
think
good.
in Canada you can put Inc., INC, or
Gotcha.
LTD after it or whatever.
Okay.
But you don't have this concept of charging order protection in Canada.
Okay, I
At
see
least
what you're
that's
saying.
my understanding.
Yeah. The other thing people sometimes ask is they say it's a little expensive to set up these things, and then you got your filing, all these costs. I don't think that's the case, right? Like you said, people can be taught to set things up, like your education.
Well, you can be taught to set up your own company, your own legal structure. That's not hard. There are fees. I mean, if you're in California, it's $850 a year for a company.
Yep. But that's a cost of doing business, right? It's just part of the cost.
Yeah, but that cost can be a crushing cost to a small business.
That's true.
So I kind of tell people, don't put the cart before the horse. Let's see if you can make money doing what you're doing. Nobody's going to sue you on your first 2 sales. Let's make some money. I ran into a guy years ago. I was speaking up in Vancouver, Washington, just over the line from Portland.
Over that way.
Over the river. And this guy comes up to me and he says, Lee, I've spent $23,000. This was like in the early 90s, late 80s. 23 grand was a fair amount of money.
That's a lot of money. Jeez.
He says, I've spent $23,000 setting up my companies. I don't have any capital to work now.
Yeah.
So let's see if you can do it.
Yeah.
Now, as a lawyer, that's malpractice for me to, you've got to protect yourself. You've got to have it. But I see so many people that get frozen before they ever start to actually make money. They spend all this money setting up shop and then never make a dime, or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I
think Lee, first of all, everybody, we're going to honor you for saying that. And Lee's blessing us here, everybody, with just some nuggets. What you just said, I think it goes back to the education piece, Lee. I mean, look, my mom, who's 87, if 30 years ago she started a Mary Kay or something, you look up to guys like you, and I sort of hate to say this, doctors too, that generation, like they're clergy. It's like, okay, you say do this, and they just do it because they trust. I remember when I started my business, it took me 2 times. I failed twice. Not fail like I folded shop, but Lee, I had to change strategy, direction. It's hard. Now for years I've been making profit and whatnot. But I think I was told when I first started doing this by a friend of mine, you need to have an external accountant, you need to have a bookkeeper, you need to get this and that. And it was thousands of dollars a year. And so I ended up learning how to do QuickBooks and taking shortcuts. But I think I want to talk to you and get you to tell us, as we go to wrapping up soon, about the education, the books and the things that you offer, because I think we'll put that in the show notes, but that's what, we're going to promote that for you, but that's what people need, is to find out, what do I need to do, the education, and then contact somebody. Well,
I've developed these educational materials over the years. They're all at LegaLees, LegaLees.com.
Okay.
I offered when we started, and I don't quite know what to do. I have 2, I'm going to say ebooks. They're about 20, 30 pages, one on LLCs and one on trusts, how to use a trust or how to use your LLC. I'd be happy to give those to your folk. Let's set up a website. It's not set up today, so give me a couple of days, okay?
Yeah.
But let's do LegaLees, LegaLees.com/Tom. I think we can get that in there.
All right. So I just put a stock ticker there, LegaLees.com. Maybe I'll just update that to
it's on my name, and I'd been doing business for about 10 years, and I thought, that's kind of hokey. Let's get a good name. I figured out that it actually had a lot of goodwill, so I kept it.
I figured that out, by the way. I'm not that smart, obviously, in my mind, but when I saw LegaLees, I kind of looked at it and went, Lee, okay, I get it. So if I got it, people will get it. So I'm going to put it back on the screen there. By the time we release this show, it'll be a bit to edit, and we'll have some cool stuff. Lee, before I honor you, with a couple things I want to do before I wrap up. This has been amazing. Remember I told you when we first start talking, you said how long, and look at 53 minutes. This is amazing, and the thing that you're so good at is the storytelling and so much wisdom and knowledge. I want to ask you for any last advice that you want to give people, from your everything you do.
Well, over the years, I've done this asset protection, and I've come to realize that we haven't even talked about your biggest asset protection threat, Tom.
Which is?
Revenue Canada, the IRS. They're taking a huge chunk of everything you make. And the accountants never teach you how to play the tax game.
Yeah.
Because if they just take your numbers, plug them into the computer, spit out the taxes, there's zero liability in that for them. Yep. But as soon as they start to teach you and coach you and move you along they get a liability. They will not help you. And people say, oh, my accountant, he takes perfect care of me. No, they don't.
Interesting.
Your two tax shelters are your business and real estate.
Yeah.
And we could do a whole nother hour on that, Tom.
Yeah. I'm just making a note.
Because that's where you're losing your big money. And just let me give you an example. If you take $1 and double it 20 times, $1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 6, you got it?
I got it.
You double it 20 times, you end up with $1,048,000 and change. Whoa. But wait, there's no tax on that, is there? So let's tax it. Let's tax it at 40%. In the States, if you have a heavier state income tax and you have the federal income tax, 40% isn't out of the realm.
Yeah.
So let's tax each double at 40%. So I've got $1 that goes to 2, but I've got $1 in profit, so I have to tax it at 40%. So I take off 40 cents, so I don't end up with $2. I end up with $1.60.
Right.
I double $1.60. I got the extra $1.60. I got to tax it. I don't end up with $320. I end up with $256. So on this side, I've got $1,048,000. On this side, I've lost 40% of that. That's $400,000. I don't know about you, but 400 grand is a lot of money to me.
Yeah. To some, it's a lifetime.
So over here, I've got $1,048,000. Over here, I've got $600,000, right? I don't think so.
Mm.
How much do I have over here, Tom? I have a grand total of $12,089.
Goodness.
$1,048,000, $12,089.
Wow.
The eighth wonder of the world is compound interest.
That's right. Rule of 72, I think. Right? I remember that.
Yeah. What you don't understand is taxes are compound interest in reverse. They are devastating.
Yeah. Yeah. All you got to do, Lee, I was a mortgage lender when I was in banking, I was in management and was retail branch. You just look at those statements of how mortgages over 25 years, the portion of interest, and it's really the principal starts getting hit way down at the other end. It's astounding. At my height of earning in my career as a paid CEO, this is when I was working for somebody else, I think 52% was the tax rate. And what's remarkable about what you're teaching is those are all my peers, and they're just not thinking about it. But then when I had a downsizing and I spoke to my accountant, and that's when we talked about creating this structure. In my business, it's, the small business tax, 12%. And, I can draw out dividends, all those kind of things, which I really, as a banker and a financial guy, I understood at a high level that you can do some things to mitigate tax, but I never really looked into it until it was almost, I had to.
There's almost nothing you can do, but your little business and your real estate are tax shelters, and nobody ever teaches you how to use them as tax.
That is really awesome. That is, and by the way, the world is powered by small business, not, it's a lifeline, and you're talking to somebody.
You somehow know that people who do a little business or people who invest in real estate have a shot at getting rich.
Exactly. Yeah.
There are all of these inherent things with the business and the real estate.
Yeah.
But what people don't understand is they're the tax shelter, and the taxes help you get that wealth.
That is awesome. By the way, yeah. And by the way, my uncle was, my dad was an electrician, became a teacher. My uncle was a plumber. So, my parents from Fiji, it was like the blue collar. I ended up going into white collar in business. But here's the thing, everybody, what Lee's teaching us is just, you got to come back and listen to this part of the show. It's such wisdom. There's a difference, Lee, between being a business owner and being self-employed. And so just, my advice that I give is, if you are going to be a business owner who has to work and the only time money's coming in is when you're working, you're going to have no life. So create a business where you have processes, systems, and eventually, just like this network marketing, it grows as you sleep. And that's ultimately, I remember Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I read something he did called the cash flow quadrant. You might know of it, but you're preaching to the choir here, but a lot of people, I mentioned this, he said there's 4 quadrants. There's only 2 of them where you can get wealthy. One is a business, and 2 is the investing in. And I ask a lot of people, how can you create wealth? What way can you do that? Can you do it? They don't know. Again, it's the education piece. So I think we're going to move to wrapping up. A couple of things I want to honor you with. So I'm just going to show you in the back screen there, Lee. You see that picture where I'm pointing?
Yes.
All right. That's that's a challenge coin. Have you heard of these things?
I haven't.
Okay. Well, they were, I think you're still pretty young, but they were started in World War One, where soldiers would carry them in their pockets, and they had fun, but it was commit to community. So if you didn't have yours, the soldier would buy you a drink or you'd buy dinner. Today, they're used around the world. First responders. My dad was a commanding officer in the British and Canadian forces. They had theirs. Dad was in Alcoholics Anonymous. They had their own coin. When I started the show, Lee, I said, I want to bring business leaders who talk about their journey, but also the goods and the bads, and are making a difference in the world, which you are so much doing. I created this coin. The front, it's printed, it's minted and hand painted in the U.S. The front is the show, but the back of it is actually the narrative of the hero's journey, which is the story research behind the show. And we give these out, so you're being inducted. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior
Thank you.
community. We'll be getting that out to you, and it's an honor to give it to you. And they're carried now in 17 countries. We've got about 260 Quiet Warriors out there. And I do want to have you back again to spend another hour on business and real estate. We'll have to put that in the calendar in the future. Okay. Last thing I want to do is in the studio when you're talking, I don't script this. And everybody, I've never met Lee, so this is how I do my show. It's authentic. It's real. I write down words. These are leadership words. The first one is humor. You've got a great sense of humor, Lee, and it's why it made even some of the moments in the show where we talked about Christy and some of the challenges in your health. Humor makes us release and go deeper. 2 is wisdom, and I know you call it garbage, but the difference, they say the difference between knowledge and
wisdom is experience.
Is time. You got it.
Right.
And everybody, Lee's got it. 3 is legacy. When I think about you now, I'm thinking everything you do is helping people create a legacy. And when I think about you, I think about my daughter and the next generations, and I really honor you for that work you do. And the last one's Maven. I don't know if you ever read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He characterizes people, and a Maven is somebody when you go, who do I know that knows everything and anything and who's who about this topic? Well, everybody, Lee Phillips, estate planning, asset protection, even the journey of life, getting through tragedy and overcoming it through resilience. Lee, you're a Maven. So on that note.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
I have my 10,000 hours on public stage, just so you know.
That is really, wow.
Yeah.
By the way, we didn't talk about the Supreme Court thing. Are you still, what is a counselor to the Supreme Court?
It's just an attorney who can work within the Supreme Court.
Okay, because I thought you didn't know anything. So
I don't.
That explains a lot about your legal system.
My ignorance is profound, Tom.
Okay. Oh my goodness. And by the way, the number of I'm not going to go there. Lawyers on Capitol Hill and all that stuff that goes on. You got a lot of lawyers out there who don't know as much as you. I can tell you that much. We
didn't even get into the lawyer jokes. We could do a whole hour on lawyer jokes.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll put that down here next time. Business, real estate, and lawyer jokes. Yeah, I'm up for that one. I got to give you a few Canadian ones too. That'll make your head spin.
Well, do you know how many lawyer jokes there are?
Okay, here we go. How many lawyer jokes are there?
Just 3. All the rest of them are true.
All the rest of them are true. Oh my goodness. Well, that was a great way to end off. So Lee, thank you so much for being on the Quiet Warrior Show. And I think I'm going to send you 2 coins, one in honor of Christy. How about that? We'll dedicate this show to your late wife.
We'll dedicate it to her.
Thank you. And we'll have you back again. So everybody find that true passion and purpose like you see Lee did. Live your life that you deserve and that you desire. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca